Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm a 20-year-old entrepreneur. My name is Michael Maloney, and I do multifamily real estate. My goal and my passion is to retire my mom and to help Main Street Americans learn about multifamily real estate and other investments as well. And of course, I'm honored to be talking to Michael Maloney today. Good to see you.
It's good seeing you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Michael, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce you really quick to our audience. So Michael is the founder of goldsilver.com and author of Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver, and a key educator in the acclaimed Hidden Secrets of Money video series. As an advocate for financial literacy and real asset ownership, Michael has spent decades teaching people how about currency cycles, debt, and monetary policies and how they impact their wealth, and how to protect it through education and precious metals investing. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on your show. Very interesting topic, and I can't wait to go into this. I know we got just a little bit of time. I'll save you some time as well. We're just going to go through these questions quickly, almost like a lightning round. So my first question for you. You have spent years helping people understand gold, silver, and how it all intertwines together, real assets, tangible assets. But most Americans still can't picture themselves going to the gas station with a gold bar yet. Like I know back then in the Roman times, you had silver and gold coins. Right. But nowadays it doesn't make sense. But how do you help people bridge the gap between and really grasp what sound money is and how it means in today's world and today's economy?
Well, you first have to grasp how national fiat currencies are constructed. All currency is, let me back up a little bit. I think it was 2005. I started doing seminars with Robert Kiyosaki. And the very first time he introduced me to a large group of people, it was an audience of 5,000 people at the Los Angeles Convention Center. And he brought me on stage by saying, in 1971, the dollar ceased being money and became a currency when Nixon took us off of the gold standard. And here's Mike Maloney to tell you about it. When he said that, it was like this light came on in my brain, and I went, wow, there is a difference between money and currency. And then I started really researching it. And I've toured 7 national monetary museums. I've seen every form of currency mankind has ever used. And Aristotle was actually the first person to define the key characteristics that something has to have to be considered money. It's got to be a medium of exchange so that we can do business with one another. It's got to be a unit of account so that we can put a price on something. It's got to have a number, basically. But most of all, it has to be a store of value. National fiat currencies are borrowed into existence, and when you borrow them, you promise to pay them back with interest. And so if you borrow the very first dollar into existence and you promise to pay back $2, where do you get the second dollar? It doesn't exist yet. You have to borrow that into existence and promise to pay that one back with interest. And so the way it's constructed, there's always more debt in the system than there is currency to pay the debt. And we constantly have, whenever the original currency that's borrowed into existence meets the debt on the balance sheet, they annihilate each other like matter-antimatter. So to keep the economy going, we have to constantly create more currency than we're destroying through paying down the debt. It's impossible to pay the national debt, and if we do try and pay off all of our debts, both public and private, then the entire world goes into a deflationary collapse. Gold and silver can't vanish. They are money. They've been the only money for the past 2,500 years since King Croesus declared that the gold and the silver should be separated into coins of equal weight. That's when they became fungible. The national fiat currencies, the math behind them says that they absolutely must lose value over long periods of time. They cannot store value and therefore are not money. And so I started this like one-man war to educate people on the difference between currency and money. There's no nation on earth that uses money. People out there in the audience think that they've got money in their wallet. They don't. They have a debt-based national fiat currency. The dollar has lost more than 99% of its. It used to be $20.67 for an ounce of gold. And so the dollar was worth 1/20th of an ounce of gold. Now it's worth 1/4000th of an ounce of gold. So we're at a point right now too, where the world just seems to be out of control with all of the deficit spending. Every politician that runs for office basically lies to us. They promise to do things like cut costs, balance the budget, to decrease deficit spending down to no more deficit spending. We're going to get this under control. And then as soon as they get into office, they start spending like drunken sailors. I think this is all sort of coming to a head. In my second book, The Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century, which I wrote from 2018 through 2022, I show that the world has had these natural transitions to different monetary systems. We had the classical gold standard from the late 1800s until the end of World War I. And then between the wars, we had the gold exchange standard, completely different world monetary system. Then we had the Bretton Woods system from 1944 to 1971. Again, a completely different system. When that fell apart, and in 1971, Nixon took us off of gold, the entire world was pegged to gold through the U.S. dollar. All of the other currencies, their central banks were holding U.S. dollars, the exchange rates were fixed, and the U.S. dollar was backed by gold. When Nixon took us off of gold, he took the entire world off of gold and disconnected all national fiat currencies from money. So the math behind them means that your currency must lose value over long periods of time. So I can't remember what the question was. That's what happens when I ramble.
But that's okay when you ramble, because you dive deep into the issue at hand. Because back then, I mean, it seems like all the way in the past, especially for someone like me, it's like I wasn't alive during then.
Right.
But that one particular action, that one simple act, now causes everything in effect, like a domino effect in today's economy, which you touched upon. The dollar has lost 99% of the value, and that the dollar is now 1/4000th of the value of gold now, somewhere
Right.
around that region.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how it just trends over time. So thank you for sharing that along with your insight.
Well, if you look at the way things really should be, you have to look at the time value in stuff. We used to, when we were hunter-gatherers, we spent our entire day just trying to get to collect the food that we were going to eat that night. So 100% of our time was spent trying to feed ourselves. Now that just takes a few minutes worth of work, and you also have cell phones and a car and computer and a nice house and all these other things. The time value in stuff keeps on falling and falling and falling. We should, if we were connected to real, honest money that doesn't steal from us, the price of things would be falling as mankind gets more efficient at making stuff. We constantly have technological breakthroughs, and then we're constantly improving our efficiencies. And so right now, stuff should be very inexpensive. And what you're seeing right now is gold is making up for the difference. Gold and silver are making up for that difference. They are gaining in purchasing power. The price rise that we've seen isn't, most people consider gold and silver like a wealth insurance. It's an insurance policy. Well, it's more than that. I'm very fond of saying that there are these brief moments in history where it's not only the safe haven investment where you run to protect your financial well-being, but it simultaneously becomes the asset class with the single potential gains, most gains in purchasing power. And we're in one of these events right now where what we've seen going from $250 at the beginning of the century to $4,000 now, and it's by no means done. Periodically, gold and silver throughout the centuries will do an accounting of the expansion of a fiat currency supply. But it takes the public sort of waking up and rushing back to gold and silver for this to happen. And that is what's happening right now. And it causes this big wealth transfer. Well, right now, we've got historic bubbles in the stock market, in real estate, and in bonds. This has never happened before, where in 1929, stock market was in a bubble. Not real estate, not bonds. 1966, the stock market was in a bubble again. That worked its way. The values came back into equilibrium through the stock market going sideways for 16 years while we had raging inflation and profits of companies going up and so on. And then in 1999-2000, the tech bubble, that was an enormous stock market bubble. By 2008, the stock market bubble had worked the excesses off, and we never got back to undervalued because Ben Bernanke papered over that crisis. He created a bunch of currency trying to reflate the stock markets, but we were not in a stock market bubble. We were in a real estate bubble, and then we had all of these derivatives like collateralized debt obligations and mortgage-backed securities. But that event was a real estate correction, and it affected the stock market. This time, we've got a real estate bubble that's larger than 2006 and 7. We've got a stock market bubble that's larger than 1999, 2000, 1929, by all measures, except for PE ratios. But things like the Buffett indicator, I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but
a little
measurement, yeah, it's the value of all the publicly listed stocks compared to the value of U.S. GDP, all the goods and services bought and sold in the economy over a period of a year. And it has the value of the publicly listed stocks have no business being more valuable than the U.S. economy. And right now, they're more than twice. They're more than double overvalued. And so when this correction comes, I do believe it's going to be horrific because it's stocks, real estate, and bonds. And there will be a wealth transfer as people rush to gold and silver for safety, knowing it's people will say it's the only asset that has no counterparty risk. Nobody has to make good on it for it to be good. And so when people seek out that trust and safety, the competition to buy each ounce of gold causes the price to rise faster than the prices are rising on other things in the economy. And the absolute gains in purchasing power during these events can be massive. So I'm also, in my first book, this book right here, I said that this is the greatest wealth transfer in history. And that was based off of, there was a book, The Great Economic Disorder, by a guy named Larry Bates back in the 90s, in which he said that wealth is never destroyed, it is merely transferred. And when I read that, I went, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest wealth transfer in history. And it's turning out that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your insight. And I know we're just coming up to our time. This has been great discussion. And somehow, I don't know if you got any magical powers, you answered almost all of my questions in one shot.
Wow.
That's impressive. But to kind of wrap up our episode and just to look to the future. So for someone like me and the young entrepreneurs that I will be working with, especially with Russell Gray, what are the next things with that wealth transfer that you talk about? Then when it comes to gold, silver, what's the next thing that we should look for when it comes to that? Is it a trend? Is it a bubble? Where should we follow this?
One of the things that I'm doing is I've got a large farm up in the mountains of Puerto Rico, and farmland never went into a bubble. It's one of the very few things that didn't. And people always need to eat. And so I see this next move that I'm already starting a transition into as something that is also very AI resistant. It's not. I'm not going to be replaced tomorrow by artificial intelligence. After 5 or 8 years, yes, there will be robots that replace a lot of the labor, but as the farm owner and supplying food to people, this is always going to be needed. And so it's another resilience play that I'm trying to do. And we're also trying to change the world. This is organic, regenerative, sustainable permaculture farming that is atmospheric CO2 negative. It sequesters carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Farming is the only thing that mankind does globally on a massive scale that should be carbon negative, but it's currently responsible for between 9 and 18% of all greenhouse gas emissions. And my farm exists at this altitude and temperatures that give it a unique situation where I'm not competing against other Puerto Rican farmers. I'm competing against Canada, California, South America. We're able to grow in a tropical climate. We're growing broccoli and asparagus and kale and things like that.
Very
things
nice.
that cost 40, 50% more in Puerto Rico. And that extra profit margin will allow us to work with the local colleges to try and figure out techniques to bring the cost of permaculture farming down below chemical monoculture farming. And if we can achieve that, then we will have changed the world because the rest of the world will adopt it. And that means that farming globally will be turned carbon negative, it'll be healthy, it'll be free of pesticides and glyphosate molecules and all of that stuff that's causing so many problems, cancer and everything else. We need to get, and we are already growing the best asparagus I've ever tasted, and I'm from California. That's where most asparagus comes from, is California. Best asparagus, best broccoli, and we've got eggs, pasture-raised eggs, where the chickens are allowed to roam free and stuff, and eat bugs and worms and everything else. And once you get used to these eggs, you go to a restaurant and you go, oh my God, there's nothing here. It just tastes like it's doing damage to you, where everything that we grow is, it feels healthy to eat.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that vision and tapping into the next thing that's going to be coming down the pike.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be some position in precious metals that I maintain. But when we get to these things like the Dow gold ratio, the gold silver ratio, the gold oil ratio, the gold M2 currency supply ratio, when we get to certain levels on these indicators, I intend on taking 20% of my holdings and converting it to the next big investment, and then another 20% and another 20% of what remains. If you do that, you always end up with something left. You're taking 20% of what's left each time. You're never selling off all of it. And so that's my plan.
Awesome. And that's going to wrap up today's episode.
Okay.
So for everyone listening, please go read Michael's book as well, and go follow him online at goldsilver.com. And when you come to New Orleans Investment Conference, find this guy. But anyways, you have been listening to the Ever Forward Mindset podcast with Michael Rebello and Michael Maloney. Build yourself better and bigger every day. Live better, live bigger. Always move ever forward. And of course, it was an honor to have you on the show, Michael.
Well, thank you.